Hi parents, this video goes with lesson number 22 with the Boogie Woogie Goose. I've skipped a couple of lessons in the meantime, and this is actually going to be the last parent video that I make because I really feel like we're at the end of how these will help you. I think your child's getting it at the lesson and they just need to go home and practice. And really what the parent can do at this point is just to reinforce everything that we've learned with practicing. And I'm going to use this piece just to kind of talk, since it's going to be the last one I do for our whole series. I want to talk a little bit about how I believe the best way to practice is, especially when you're little and you're not an adult, and some of the differences between adults and methods to methods to help you to be able to practice the most effectively. Well, what does that mean? We have short amounts of times in our day, and we want to get good at piano as fast as we can. Well, how do you do that? The only way to get better at piano quickly is to practice correctly so that we have less time practicing. Who wants to practice 20,000 hours when 10,000 hours can teach you the instrument? But we need to practice perfectly. And there are tricks you can do. Learning an instrument is different than many things, and the actual process of learning is a little bit different. For instance, when you're out playing baseball, you go to batting practice and you practice perfectly. You hit the ball and you swing and you swing and you take pitches over and over again. Repetition is also important here, but there's something that's also added to piano. It's the ears. Muscle memory I don't know how muscle memory works with sports, but I think it's just as we expect. You just keep practicing it correctly and it'll come until it comes automatically. Well, that's true with piano too, except that there's another element, and that's our ears. The muscle memory in our fingers is also connected to our ears. If you're not listening, it takes longer for the muscle memory to develop. Here's another thing. Our brains do not remember tempo. That's why we can start practicing very, very slowly. And then all of a sudden, bam, we can play it fast because our brains remember the notes in order. We want to make sure that when we're playing this, we play it correctly. So when your child sits down to the piano for the first time, do not have them play start to finish. Please don't do that, because unless it's the only time they're ever going to play it. But if they're learning it for a lesson or they're going to have to play for other people, you don't want to do that because they're going to make too many mistakes. And their first impression of the music will be their ears hearing things done wrong that are coded to their fingers. So we're building we're having some bad memories here, and we don't want bad memories. We want them to all be good. So definitely make sure that when they play, it doesn't matter. Forget the rhythm, forget the eighth notes, forget the swing if you need to, forget all of that stuff, and just make sure that they can play it right. And then we speed up. After you can play it right, we get the eighth notes and the quarter notes and all of the rhythm in correctly. The rest, we even include all of that. And we get that correct, and then we speed it up. So how then would we use this piece to practice? We're going to practice in phrases. It's repetition of small groups, and we need to use our ears to listen to the correct notes. So here's the first phrase that I would have them do. This is easy because it's left hand all by itself. They're going to want to practice getting this. I practice as slow as they can while still hearing the swing. If you play it way too slowly, you're not going to hear the swing. We want to hear a little bit of swing, but very slowly in the beginning. And this is an eighth note, come off of it, and then they can jump right back in. Notice that's an eighth note there, and then the next note, so they're going to come off the eighth note quickly, and it's an A. It's an A. And then here's another A. So I want the first phrase to end halfway through this measure 5. So you're going to play A, and hold that just a touch longer. And then we're not going to practice this phrase. The reason why I want to have the first phrase blend into or overlap the second phrase is because we're going to learn this phrase and we're going to learn this phrase, and I want them to overlap. I want it to be seamless when you put them back together. So practice this, really important. Get that A in there, play that. Then when you're done with that, you're going to start the next phrase on the A, just as you would expect. And now this is the tricky part, because look what's happening. We have to play something with the right hand at the same time we're playing this different rhythm. And you may want to have them practice it very slowly until they can do it. And you may even have them just do those first 3 or 5 notes. Just that. Because this is independent. This is independent work here. And have them do this until they've really got it. Doesn't matter how slow it is. The brain will remember. And I'll tell you what, kids learn it faster because their brains are like cartilage and our brains are like bone. When we as adults have to sit down and learn something at the piano, we have to break the pathways, the memory pathways in our brains. We have to break them down like bone and then rebuild them. That's why adults need so much more practice. We have to do so many more repetitions than a child. But they're very, we can manipulate their brains, kind of scary thought really, because they're still growing. And so they don't have to break down a pathway to start a new one. They're going to need less repetitions. This is why we teach children languages and everything at a very young age, because they can get it. Not us. We're going to need 1 million of these repetitions to be able to learn. That doesn't mean you can't do it. And in fact, once an adult has it memorized, they've got it for a long, long, long time. They've got it in their fingers for a long time. You can put something down for 10 years, pull it out again, and it's like, it's nothing at all to bring it right back. So don't be discouraged if you're the adult learning along the child and you have to practice more than they do. That's because our brains are more solid. Okay, so here's the next phrase. And then this is actually going to be trickier than you think because we're going from swing into a different rhythm and it's quarter notes. Plus, we're getting off of this. We've been doing this. And now all of a sudden we're going to go from this D, which is a short swing note. This is the second one is a short one. And then we're going to go back on the white key and change the tempo. Well, it's not really the tempo. We're changing the rhythm here. It feels like the tempo is changing. So it's going to be... Here's how I would have them do it. Practice this, just these two. This is no problem. This will be easy. Then I would have them practice just this one measure so that they've got that. As soon as they've played that a number of times correctly, don't put these two together yet because this is more work. I would do this, have them just do the left hand, and then go back, and then they'll be able to go back to the swing. It's easier to go to swing after playing straight. It's hard to play straight after swinging. So then, after they can play this by itself, they first do this, then they do this, then they do just the left hand, then go ahead and put these two together. That'll work. Here's a good stopping point. We may do this in 1 week. If your child's really good at it and you have lots of practice time during the week, we may go ahead and continue. The difference between this and this is a little bit of a different motive here, a little bit of a different melody. The theme is just slightly off. It's a variation. And we have a B flat. So here we started on B. Now it's... So this is going to change, but if you practiced it this way that I told you where you stop right here, then this is going to be easy for you. You're not going to have to worry about that at all. And then this is the same except we're doing a B flat. This phrase right here, they're going to have to practice. Here is another example of why we need our wrists up and we need to keep our wrists moving. So they're going to have to practice that a few times. Keep the wrist moving, keep it fluid, have them practice that. This adds a B flat in the bottom and also in the top. So it makes it a little bit, it's a little more fun there at the end. As far as the round fingers and the wrist go, this is a place, especially when we're going here from... If your child has not been playing with round fingers, this right here is going to be tricky because how can you get from here when you're playing quickly without curving that finger? So if your child's been playing with straight fingers, they're going to have to move their hand around to actually, and we don't want that. We want to stay right here because we've got this rhythm to get back to. So this is a place where all this talk about getting your fingers round, it pays off. And if they haven't been able to do it, they're going to have to do it now, or they're not going to be able to play it. All right, and ritardando at the end here, this is a repeat here. You can play it a lot more slowly at the end. It's also getting really quiet right there at the end. And you can also add an extra, whoops, you can add an extra G just to make it fun. All right, so as far as the practicing goes, these are the general rules. Make sure that you practice in phrases. Practice very, very slowly first. Get the notes right. Listen to what you're playing. That helps code our brain. Then get the rhythm correct so that you're getting the rests in. You're not playing notes too long or too short. Get the rhythm correct. And then as soon as you can play that with enough repetitions, then you may slowly speed it up. Use the metronome to speed yourself up. After that, take the metronome out and work on your dynamics and the louds and the softs to make it sound fun and beautiful, and whatever the theme is for the song, whatever the goal is for the piece. All right, well, congratulations on getting as far as you have. Your child really has learned everything from me that I can teach them. Now it's just a matter of practicing until we can get to the end, and then you'll be ready to move on to more advanced work. So very good.